New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio is the latest Democrat to jump into the race for president. Is this the career move he should be making right now? And he's been called the most controversial, outrageous, and influential radio shock jock of all time. Howard Stern shares his most unforgettable moments, his biggest regrets, and why he says he helped put Donald Trump in the White House. Let's light up Hot Topics with Whoopi, Abby Huntsman, Joy Behar, Sunny Austin, and Meghan McCain. Now, let's get things started.
Excited today.
Yeah. Never seen this many men in this audience.
No, this is a few more men than we usually get, but you know, it couldn't be for Howard Stern, could it?
I'm so excited. I'm a huge fan. He's the king of all media. Baba Booey.
Good to have her. So, before we get to Howard, though, y'all got us with what we do. Okay? A lot of Democrats are saying Joe Biden, Kamala Harris teaming up would make for a dream ticket, and Senator Harris agrees with them to a point. Take a look.
I think that, sure, if people want to speculate about running mates, I encourage that, because I think that Joe Biden would be a great running mate. As vice president, he's proven that he knows how to do the job. And there are certainly a lot of other candidates that would make, for me, a very viable and interesting vice president.
Now, he is the clear front runner by double digits right now, but don't y'all think it's a little early for this conversation to be happening? I mean, we keep adding people to the pack.
Yeah.
I mean,
two new ones yesterday.
And one that, got another one today.
Yeah. Well, there are 23 Democrats running for 24 now with today's
You can't
announcement.
blame them, though. It's like with this jerk in the White House, it's like anybody could run.
Well, yeah.
Anybody could be president compared to him. I know some of you are fans. I don't care.
Well, but I do think it's dismissive of Kamala and all women, really, to suggest that she's running for vice president. She's running for president of the United States. And so I just don't understand why they constantly are saying, you'd make a good vice president. That's not the spot that she's running for.
Nobody runs for second place. Nobody runs for second place. And I think it's a really reductive question to be asking candidates, because I do think that we want to know what their platform is across the board. And I think that it's so early, it's so new. Anything can come out of left field. I know better than anyone that running mates can come out of left field in any way that you can. And it's a make or break decision, but you should give people time.
Having said that, though, Biden, Kamala, great ticket. Youth and experience.
Yeah. I don't know.
Great ticket.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sold on anything yet.
I think a lot.
We're a year and a half out, you guys.
Well, this is going to be going on for a while, because as I said, people keep joining the pack. And her campaign aide said that Fox News reached out to them about doing the town hall, but they're not entertaining it. Now, yesterday we talked about how Elizabeth Warren says she's not going to go either. But, we did mention that they could be limiting their audiences.
I know.
By not doing it.
The interesting thing is, it's a fine game plan for the primaries, right? Because if you have a lot of Republicans watching Fox News, they're not going to be voting in the Democratic primaries. That's fine. But it is not a long-term game plan, because if you're running to be president of the United States, you have to reach the Fox viewer. It is the #1 cable news network in the country. Yeah. And so it's a very dismissive long-term game plan. And I suspect if you have someone like Kamala that is going to be on the ticket, she's got to switch that game plan.
Well, also, Donna Brazile is over there. There's a lot of folks over there. Now, I kind of understand it because it used to be a time where you could go and, do Sean Hannity's show, or you could go do O'Reilly. There wasn't this stop, don't come over here.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe everybody needs to just say, now's the time to start blending again. Because some of us are married to people who are, who are not believe the same things that we believe, and at some point we're going to have to come together. Might as well try it here.
It's also actually a misnomer that Fox News viewers are predominantly just conservative. Yes, it's probably a somewhat of a majority, but there are actually a lot of independents.
Mm-hmm.
And there are actually some Democrats that watch Fox News in the same way that I watch CNN. I like to know all perspectives all the time, and you never know. I just think, like I said yesterday, if you can even have one voter who goes to their red hometown and says, do you know what? I loved what they had to say, and I'm going to take a second look because I'm not so happy with what's going on.
Sure.
That, to me, would be worth it. In the same way that I don't like it when Democrats are too big of cowards to come on this show. I don't like it when Democrats are too big of cowards to go on Fox News, and vice versa. Republicans on CNN.
Well, actually, I have to say, it has been a while since they were invited. Because as I was saying, I used to get invited to go all the time.
Mm-hmm. And then Republicans get asked on the show a lot. They say no a lot.
And they say no.
They lost one last week.
Yeah.
Did.
Yeah.
People
but when
say
they do
no.
come and they sit like a Dan Crenshaw, I may not agree with his politics, but I appreciate that he wasn't cowardly, that he sat and he,
well, you can't
and he
bitch
took
about
the question.
us. You can't bitch about us. And then say that we don't get it when you don't come.
Exactly.
You can't bitch if you don't come.
If this is too hot for you, you don't deserve to be in politics.
You can't do that.
If this table is what you can take,
it's so true.
Snowflakes scared of the view? I hate it.
It's ridiculous.
Come on, what are you scared? A bunch of 4 women?
Yeah.
Come on.
It's ridiculous.
Howard's not scared.
Snowflake.
She doesn't know what a snowflake is.
I didn't know what
It's
my
like a scaredy cat.
It's like a I'm so precious. I'm just a special snowflake. I can't handle anyone that disagrees with me. It's a bad thing.
But
none of us at this table are like that.
No. What do you think about the argument, though, that Elizabeth Warren said that she said it's a hate-for-profit racket that gives a megaphone to racists and conspiracists, and so she doesn't want to legitimize the network.
But a lot of people over there are just getting that Fox point of view, which a lot of it is not factual. So they could use a fact-based person to talk over there
and make it better. If you're not going to make it better, you can't bitch about it.
The people who moderate those town halls are very respected journalists.
Yeah.
It's not like
We're not talking about Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
We're not talking about
I like
the
Chris
evening
Wallace,
shows.
and I like that Judge Napolitano's turning out to be quite vociferous
There's
against
a whole
Trump.
bunch of really good people.
I mean, there's a ton of people I respect and are very middle of the road.
All right, Joe.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll be right back with more Hot Topics.
I don't know exactly how I feel.
One thing's for sure.
I don't know what the end of this is for me.
I like to think I do.
All hell
I mean, you guys are in my way. You gave me your word. You were staying in your lane.
is about to break.
He's manipulating.
Luke.
You're the fakest person I've ever met.
You don't even know me.
Oh, I know you.
I've been nothing but truthful with Kayla. You are not gonna mess it up.
I'm scared.
The Bachelorette. New tonight on ABC.
Still ahead, Howard Stern at the Hot Topics table? Oh, this I have to see.
Welcome back. So, of course, we did touch on this a little bit ago, and this morning it became official. New York City Mayor.
I know!
Bill de Blasio is running for president. His campaign video says,
God.
let me read it. It says he's going to put working people first. That New York has embraced the Green Deal. And that he'll take it national. And that as a New Yorker, he's always known what a bully and fraud the guy in the White House is. Is this a good career move for him? Right now? No! What are you doing? Not a good career move, man. Here's the thing that you didn't mention. Homelessness is near record highs. Congestion pricing will take the minimum wage money that we just gave to people. It'll take it away from them because they have to pay the congestion pricing. Public housing is falling apart. You can't seem to fire anybody. The subways are underserved. The buses are slow. What the hell are you going to do? You know, well, I just finish doing what you're doing here. Finish being the mayor.
Oh, I love
Finish
it.
this out. You know, so that we can.
He's done some good things.
Spit him out.
Okay.
Yeah.
What? He passed universal pre-K program.
Okay.
The number of 4-year-olds enrolled has almost quadrupled. He's increased funding for affordable housing, even if they're not being maintained properly.
Yeah.
He championed a freeze on rent increases. That's important.
Yeah.
Especially commercial rent. Well, that's what's killing the city.
that is what's killing the
He raised
city.
the minimum wage to $15. He dramatically reduced stop and frisk. Murder rate is lowest in decades. He
Not because of him.
He supports legalizing the sale of marijuana. How about that?
Well, you know what?
6%.
Can I add something to the
Yes,
good
you
stuff
can,
that he's
absolutely.
done? He approved a legal guarantee for paid sick leave, paid vacation now, also for all New Yorkers, and something that I think is fantastic. There's now in New York a fully comprehensive guaranteed health care system.
Yes.
And it targets 600,000 uninsured residents.
yes.
Half of them are undocumented immigrants, and New York is the only place that does that. And so while there are a lot of faults for Bill de Blasio, he's done a lot for this city. And by the way, Donald Trump, no one in New York voted for Donald Trump, but America voted for Donald Trump.
That's
and
right.
so the fact that he maybe hasn't been that successful here, I don't think
Okay,
the
but
rest of
you
America
live and die by
cares.
launches, and this morning in GMA, people were screaming liars so loud outside that George Stephanopoulos had to say, hey, there's a bunch of protesters
be a
out here.
setup. You don't know who those people
Can I just
are.
finish
Yeah,
talking?
go ahead,
Because I
baby,
hate
go
this
ahead.
guy. Thank you. 76% of New Yorkers said he shouldn't run for president. There's a violent crime rise. There's a measles outbreak, increase in homelessness. He's a climate change hypocrite. He drives to and from Gracie Mansion down to Brooklyn in an 11-mile caravan. Yet he's advocating for Green New Deal right now. And on top of everything else, he killed the groundhog. And I feel like that's important to America. And we have the video, okay? He did. He dropped his groundhog.
But the groundhog didn't die.
Yes, the groundhog did die.
Are you holding him responsible for the measles outbreak?
I think that you're talking about crappy things happening in New York City. You're the mayor.
Not
Buck
everything is
stops
his
at
fault.
you.
No, not everything is his fault, but a lot. But you know
As
what?
far as I'm
It's
concerned, it is.
for me, had he started this idea that you can't have these insane rents 4 years ago when it was happening, if he had started a lot of these programs when he first got in, and as he said, instead he was pissed that people who had some money, you know, shouldn't get services done. That people who live outside the city shouldn't be able to come into the city. Doesn't believe that people should be driving their cars into the city. If you've driven people out of the city, how the hell do you expect them to come to work?
And by the way, that groundhog was named Staten Island Chuck.
We'll be right back.
He's a mixed bag.
Please, no cameras. I'm very shy. I'm not seeking any attention for myself.
Recently launched SiriusXM Howard Stern video promoting his #1 best-selling book, Howard Stern Comes Again. We are happy to welcome back to The View the amazing Howard Stern.
First of all, you see what happens when you write a book? When you write a book, everyone is so literary. People get excited when they write.
That's right.
It's
They do.
unbelievable.
Yeah, right.
They do.
First of all, Whoopi, of course, I know you. Whoopi is in my book.
Yes.
She is in there. Joy, you look great.
Thank you. I'm not in the book.
Now, Sonny, I never met you before. This is a new cast for me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And Megan, of course, I know you, but you know, and now who's gone? Julie Chamunvez, right? She's not on that.
She married him.
She married Les.
That was a big mistake.
Well, why fire her? Why did you guys fire her?
We didn't. She just wasn't on this show.
Oh, she's not on this show. I didn't know that.
No.
Joy, come on. Well, this is, first of all, Megan, I want to, and on a serious note, I want to bring the show down, but I wanted to say about your father. I got to meet him and a couple of years ago, and I got to thank him for his service and how much he meant to me and how much he gave to this country, and I really am excited to be here with you, and just I offer my condolences.
I remember when he met you, because my parents said you were such a gentleman.
I really was. For once, I was a gentleman around your father.
And then I went on your show, and I thought he was going to have a heart attack.
Yeah.
I remember being like, I'm going on Howard Stern, and it's still one of the highlights of my career.
We had a good time.
Hands down. Great. Everyone should do it. It's an incredible experience. You're the king of all media.
And Sonny, where have you been hiding? What's going on
I've
with you?
been hiding a little bit from you.
And everyone says you look like today you got a little extra dressed up for the show.
I did for you, Howard.
Well, that's not true. She looks like she just came from the club, wherever
Just
the club
for you.
is.
I wanted to kind of channel you.
Well, you're channeling me. And Whoopi, I was worried about you because they said you were septic, and that doesn't, I shook your hand. I'm really worried.
Don't worry now. Don't worry now.
What does septic mean?
It means that you have poison really running through your blood. It was quite bad.
Do you have any of that hand sanitizer? You're okay.
Yes, I'll lick your fingers. It'll be fine.
I'm a little nervous.
Well, don't be too nervous. Listen.
Yes.
I know that this is rare for you. You don't like really doing a whole bunch of other people's shows. So we want to.
I love being in the studio.
Yes.
I love it. I'm safe there. I talk to Robin on the radio. You know, I don't have anybody attacking me. I never know with you guys. But no, it's very safe. It's gotten into a very nice rhythm.
Yeah.
So to come on here, you know, when you write a book, they say come on The View because you guys evidently sell books. You
we
better.
sell a lot of books.
All right.
Yes,
You
we
sell
do.
a lot of books.
Our audience reads.
Your audience reads?
Yeah.
Gee, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But no, I believe that. I can see these people are very literate. No, but I was excited about writing a book, and I believe in the book, and I'm so proud of the book that I said I better come on The View and leave my studio.
Well, the book is fantastic,
Thank
actually.
you. Thank you for saying
It's fantastic.
that. Here's the shocking.
It has a lot of his interviews, and they're fantastic.
Well, this is the shocking part of it. Every time I wrote a book in the past, I wrote about me.
Right.
This time, I'm writing about other people. I'm celebrating the fact that maybe I grew up a little bit, and I have had this wonderful experience at SiriusXM. And the wonderful experience is that when someone like Whoopi comes on, or anybody comes in, for an hour and a half, sometimes we can just sit and talk.
Yes. Yeah.
And I really truly believed when I went over there, I had a unique opportunity. I said, wow, this is something special. I can sit with someone, I can get to know them. A lot of times if I go out to dinner with someone, I ask these questions and we get into this great conversation, and it's a one-on-one thing, and it's so powerful. What if I could bring that to radio? Would it be compelling? And a lot of my guests say they felt like, oh, I got to express myself in a new way. Because the art of the interview sometimes is dead.
But it has a little bit about you also when you introduce each chapter, and it also has a little bit about you in the questions that you ask.
Yeah, the questions I ask, I think you get to know me through the questions I ask. And you can see I'm in psychoanalysis because at times I sound like I'm a psychoanalyst.
Thank God.
It's true.
Thank God you're in psychoanalysis.
I went into psychoanalysis 4 days a week.
Yeah,
I barely had time to
like Woody Allen.
Like Woody Allen.
Yeah.
I was on that, you know, but it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It really was. It opened my mind to a lot of things. And I don't think I could have been as empathic with my guests. We've just had some fabulous people, and people open up. I mean, Whoopi, I didn't know that Whoopi had a problem with drugs. I included you in that. And Whoopi kind of opened up and said that it was a pretty serious heroin habit, and that you had to take all kinds of jobs in order to support that habit. And, you know, it really... It's kind of sad how we don't get to know each other.
Yeah.
And even with some of these people who are so accomplished, like Jerry Seinfeld or Amy Poehler, they're so accomplished, but you forget how hard they work to get where they, where they got.
Right.
And you also don't get to know them as people.
Yeah.
And because we're on the internet bashing everyone and bashing every person, you can forget that these are people.
Yeah.
And you know, I was thinking that the first person I chose for the book was Madonna. And when you sit and listen to her story after her mother died and what she went through and how she came to New York City to be a dancer.
Yeah.
And then suddenly she moves into Manhattan. She has a guy drop her off in a cab. She says, take me to the center. She has nowhere to live. She has no financial support. The guy drops her off in Times Square. And she says to me, I met a guy in Times Square, and he invited me into his apartment, and I stayed with him for a couple of days.
Really?
And you think about
that man was Harvey Weinstein.
Well, but you know, that was the other dilemma with the book. I put Harvey Weinstein in the book. And I really struggled with that. And because I know the women who were affected by him and attacked by him, if they see him getting attention in a book, is that me supporting him? And I went back and forth on it. But at the end of the day, I thought it was valuable because I got him to open up at that time, not only about his life and about how he chooses movies. And here was a guy, an unpopular kid who actually made it. But when I'm sitting there, I asked him about the casting couch. And I said to him, Harvey, what goes on? Do you seduce women? Do you make women give you sex for parts? Do you do this kind of thing? And he turned to me like a choir boy, and he said, Howard, I can't do that. Do you know what would happen to my films? Do you know what would happen to my career? And that doesn't happen to the producer, maybe the directors, but not the producer. So, okay, fast forward to now, and we read it, and what the hypocrisy is, he knows the right thing to say. He knew the right thing to do, and yet we see what happened. So I put him in the book, and I'm glad I did. And all of these people, I think there's something to be learned.
Did you think he was lying to you?
I did. I did. At the time, I kind of did. Because I got off the air and I talked to Robin, who I work with, and I said, I don't know if I buy that. You know, I just don't know. But it was good that it was there and it was on the record. So, you know, the book's been a celebration for me. It really has.
Really good. With Howard Stern right now. We want to talk to him about, you know, who and all kinds of other stuff. The book is remarkable. It's called Howard Stern Comes Again.
Oh, my God. I'm having so much fun.
Yes.
So much fun.
Does everyone know that you paint landscapes and animals?
Well, I talk on the air about the fact that I got into painting 4 years ago. I couldn't draw at all. I couldn't, and I said for some reason I wanted to art journal. I actually talk about Rosie in this book, Rosie O'Donnell. And Rosie, one of the best guests I've ever had on my show, and it was a miracle that she was on my show because for years I had, like an ass, attacked Rosie. I didn't really give her a chance. And so Rosie and I, we talked, and I realized it was just my own anger. But the interview I did with her in the book, she came in and she was so open, and it leveled me. She began to talk about, and it was a really intimate conversation, again, lost her mother at a very young age. And she was in so much pain, she starts to describe that she would take a small baseball bat and break her hands, break the bones in her hand. And I said, why? Why do you do something like that? And she said, because I was in so much pain over the loss of my mother that I wanted to feel anything else. And I thought, oh, you know, that's such an honest moment. And the fact that she's sharing it with the audience. And then on the lighter side of her, I asked her about stand-up. No, she art journals and stuff. And what happened was we ended up becoming such good friends that when I started to paint, she wrote me a long email and said, this is how you need to acquire all these materials. Here's what I use, blah, blah, blah. It was very generous of her, very nice and beautiful. But it's a beautiful interview. And even talking about her climb in show business is quite phenomenal.
President Bush paints, too.
President Bush paints?
Yeah.
Pretty well.
Maybe we'll have like Battle of the Bands, a paint-off with me and President Bush.
Let's change the subject for a second, because before...
What's the matter? You don't want to talk about Rosie?
No, I do. You did. It was very good.
What happened with Rosie? She's not on the show anymore.
No, but she's around.
Whoopi, you're anti-Rosie or you like Rosie?
I don't think about it.
You don't even think about it?
No, but let's talk about Trump before we run out of time.
Oh, Trump. Are we running out of time?
Yeah, well, it goes fast
never run out of time.
Never out of time.
It's not like a 2-hour show.
Let's talk about Trump. Trump is heavily weighted in my book.
Yes.
There's 11 different interviews.
A lot of interviews.
The highlight of the interviews of Trump, in my opinion, is this phenomenal fight he gets into on the air with A.J. Benza, the gossip column. And it was unbelievable. They start yelling at each other. And what are they fighting over? A woman.
Of course.
A.J. had a girlfriend, and Trump was having sex with her. And Trump was on the air bragging that he stole AJ's girl and that he was better sexually than AJ. Now, this is radio fireworks.
And he's like rating women.
Yes.
He's rating women during the interviews. I'm reading the book. Like, why is Trump rating women from 1 to 10?
He is
Trump.
Because he's so hot sexually. He's so good looking that he has earned the right
now
to rape women.
Oh my God, you've seen him.
He's
oh my God.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
Because what do you think of him as president? Because when we were covering him, a lot of his old interviews on your show were used for like political fire and a lot of things, like comparing AIDS to Vietnam.
Yeah, now I thought that was unfair. I have to tell you this. The AIDS to Vietnam, he was on the air joking. There was no way that was a serious comment. Having said that, look, I was a huge Hillary Clinton supporter.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, she's the lesser of all evils. I was for her before Obama. I loved Obama, but I loved Hillary Clinton. I thought that she was a candidate that was misunderstood, that her message wasn't coming across. And I think, again, I don't say this would have changed the election, but I think if she would have come on the show, I was begging her. I said I didn't talk to her directly. I think she was afraid of me, and justifiably. But I was trying to say to her, "Can you imagine, Joy?"
It's tough, and she played it safe too.
She played it safe, and that's the warning to whoever becomes the Democratic nominee.
Who do you like?
Don't play it safe.
Who do you like?
I don't know yet. I was listening to Whoopi in the beginning. It's almost like there's so many people. I'm on overload, and you know, every week it's sort of like the flavor of the month.
Well, Biden's way ahead.
Biden's way ahead because I think people want a new president so badly that they want to play it a little safe. A guy who's been a vice president, he's tested. And I feel bad for the women running because it probably is time for a woman to run. But because everyone's so nervous, they're tightening up and saying it better be Joe Biden because they got to get the best shot.
And the women are incredibly smart. The
incredibly
ones that are running.
smart. And so, you know, there's a lot of good candidates out there, and we'll see. But yeah, it was very awkward.
Would you ever entertain a Republican? Like,
absolutely.
again?
I voted for Republicans. I mean, I'm not. Who have I voted for?
Yeah.
When
You voted
locally,
for Bush?
I vote. No, I did not vote for Bush. I voted for Pataki when he ran. I voted for
in New York.
In New York.
Yeah.
I voted for who else? I mean, a lot.
Dukakis?
I did. Did I vote for Dukakis?
Clinton. You voted for Clinton.
Oh yeah, Clinton.
Right.
Loved.
So you
I
go-
thought Clinton
you
was
go
best.
where the
I
best
voted for
presidents.
Republicans. I've endorsed
Just
Republicans.
can't think of any of them.
I'm having a hard time right now. Very nervous. But yes, listen, I feel bad for you. I see you getting yelled at all the time. Anytime you're feeling overwhelmed, let me know. Give the woman a chance, for my sake.
Why are you looking at me?
Run at you.
Why are you looking at
You're
me?
chasing her out. She's in tears. It's crazy.
I came from the grave. I came from the grave.
You got to
to
be a
come
little
back
bit.
to be
You
with y'all.
got to be the live aid Whoopi once in a while.
True. She came back
I
from
came back
being
from the grave.
dead
Were you close
come
to
back
death?
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
my
don't
doctor's
do that.
over
Your
there.
doctor?
He's a
We have a
huge
doctor
fan.
on
Yes.
call?
Yeah.
Would you look at me? I got a problem myself. During the commercial.
I have to say, Howard, and I said this to you.
Let me move my chair away from Whoopi.
I said this
I
to
don't
you.
know what you...
I said this to you during the break. I grew up. I was in college in the 80s. Thank you. I was in college in the I was in college in the 80s, and I found your show so offensive. You used.
Thank you.
That's what I figured, right? You were a shock jock. You were shock jock. You used the N-word a lot. You said
I didn't.
really?
I used the N-word.
Yeah, you did.
Wait a second. Hold on before you say that. Whoopi, hold on.
Wait.
No, we had a guy on from the Ku Klux Klan.
Yes.
Who very freely used the N-word.
Yeah.
And my belief was, hey, say it out in the open.
Yes.
And I didn't use the N-word. Let's be very clear.
That
is not my thing.
Robin would have killed you.
It was something that was batted around on your show. I'll rephrase it.
And by the way, I make no apology for that.
No, and you didn't. You didn't then.
Because I don't like people who live under a rock. I said to the guy, let me hear what you're saying, and let's confront it, and let's talk about it.
You also said some things about Gabby Sidibe.
I said a ton of things about people.
But my point is, I found it so offensive that I was turned off by it.
Oh, no, that's not
and
good.
crass. But you're a very different person today, and I loved your book.
Thank you.
And I believe people evolve. And
I do too, and that was part of the point in writing the book. I am a big proponent of psychotherapy and a good, loving relationship. And yeah, there has been a lot of personal growth for me, and I think it is possible to change. And I think the show is a lot more balanced. I'm not going to say the show isn't crazy and wild, but we've also opened it up to some new ideas where people, some really fantastic people, are coming in and feel safe enough to be interviewed and get into some real conversation.
So is that your message to people like me that were like, I'm not going to buy this new Howard Stern?
I'm glad you said that, because the book, really, I wrote it, and I wasn't super motivated to write a book at first. And I said, well, what if, I think the dream was, what if I could reach someone like you, who was maybe turned off to me, doesn't know what we're doing over on satellite radio, doesn't understand that, you know, people evolve, the show has evolved, and these wonderful discussions are going on. If you've ever wondered what it's like to get into the head of Steve Martin or Ellen DeGeneres or so many of these people, there's over 140 people in this book.
Yeah.
There's touching moments from guys like Chris Cornell before he committed suicide. He was talking to me about Kurt Cobain from Nirvana, and he said, why didn't Kurt just wait 6 more months? If he could have held on, maybe his whole world would have changed. And then, yeah, I mean, crazy stuff. So, yeah, I wanted to reach someone like you. It was particularly.
But also,
where do you have to go?
We have to do a.
I'm sorry, but I grew up listening to you. Cindy McCain's my mother. I love the show forever. I was never offended.
So when you come back.
Well,
Listen,
you know.
we'll be back with the new and cast
at noon. Chrissy Metz, Why Don't We Performs, and Hugh Jackman.
Are you wearing a suit of muscle underneath? Yes.
All fake.
You're wearing
fake,
all
fake. Next live. Watch live
tomorrow morning at 9 on ABC 7.
Ismail? David. Over ground zero. You can see just home after home. Thank you. Thank you.
Again, and I understand your mother watches this show.
Mom, you're out there. This is my mom. Let me talk to her in her own voice. Listen, you're doing a fabulous I love those ladies, and that whoopee is terrific. And you tell her I said it, and she better stop coughing. Get that doctor to do a better job. I'll get a lecture on this appearance, for sure. Yeah, my mother is featured in the book. I saved the best for last. Yeah. And she, it's an amazing conversation. Unlike some of the deeper conversations, it's a rather interesting conversation. I demanded to know how I was conceived and in what position.
Oh, my God.
Yes. I wanted to know, as you do. I know you asked your father that.
I actually know.
You do know?
I do know.
Your father told you how?
My mother told me on accident, and it's disgusting, and I'm certainly not going to say it on the show.
Hold it a second. This is an adult program. What position were you conceived?
I don't know that. I just know where they were.
Oh, that's nothing. I wanted to know every detail.
Right.
And of course, I think it's a rather humorous conversation.
Right.
And I do say in the book, you know, I've always had that relationship with my mother.
Which is great.
We could always talk openly and joke around, and it's quite liberating if you happen to be on the radio.
How about your father?
My father is great. My father gave me a lot of radio advice. You know, listen, it's tough, and I write this in the book. My father is 96.
Oh.
My mother is 91.
Good for them.
And, you know, watch, it's weird. I always say I'm like Prince Charles. I'll never get to be king. They just, you know, they're hanging in there. And they just celebrated their 75th wedding anniversary, which is phenomenal. So, of course, I had to write about them, but you know, look, it's a weird thing. I had a health scare, and I revealed it in the book. I was hesitant to reveal it on the air, and I go into why, and that's a whole other discussion. But when you have a health scare like that, and I'm saying to myself, wait a second, my parents are 96 and 91. I'm supposed to live forever.
Yeah.
Not the rest of you, me. And I was really in shock when this happened, and they told me I had a 95% chance of cancer. And
where?
On my kidney. And then they went in and they did this very big operation, and it turned out to be just a cyst.
Oh.
And so it was relief, but I was also like, oh man, that got me thinking. And I said, what's the thing I'm most proud of? I'm proud of these interviews I'm doing. I'm proud of the intense conversations we're having on a microphone in front of millions of people. And I want that to be in a collection. And so that's what motivated me.
I think I may be a convert, Howard.
You're going to listen, and you're going to be a big fan, and who knows what's going to happen with us. Yeah.